Hello and welcome to Session 1. I'm Meg Ormiston and I'm going to guide you through this series of learning. In Session 1, we're going to jump into collaborating with student teams. And as we are going through this session, we're in all different places in learning. Some are in hybrid, some are remote. It changes every day in many cases. I'm going to call this whole thing transitional learning. And so now we're going to kind of shift to how do we get students involved and working in those small group teams. When we started remote learning last spring, this was really a challenge. For those of you that were on the Google Meet platform, they didn't even have breakout rooms until recently. And so now it's kind of a whole new, how can we rethink what we're doing? So let's jump in. This is going to be informal. This is going to be just a lot of fun and stuff that you can use immediately tomorrow. The way the sessions are organized, there are 3 chunks in each one. After each chunk, there is just a discussion question, and you go over to the forum and you discuss with the other people that are taking the class. Just so you can plan your time, they're about 10 to 12 minutes each segment-ish. Just like all teaching, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to be talking about these small groups. I call them micro teams. You call them whatever you want. And we want to look at what are these groups of students going to be doing? What kind of projects can we design that the groups would be working together? We're going to start off with social emotional learning and why that's so critical in this transitional learning. Our whole long-term goal is to empower students to own their own learning so they are learning how to learn. We also want them to develop group skills so they know how that there's individual goals and there are interdependent goals. So that's our kind of our overview of where we're going. We started out with a lot of direct instruction. Many of you were told by your school districts that you need to do X amount of synchronous learning back in the day when we didn't even know what synchronous meant. And so we had this time chunk. And so we started talking and talking and talking, and our students started to check out. And last spring, many of them had kind of permission to check out. Now we have to really get creative in how we can engage them. It's very difficult when students turn off their microphones in their videos and they kind of fade to black. I call it the black rectangle. We need to cut ourselves some slack as teachers. I've taught thousands of teachers how to teach remotely since this whole thing started, and I'm still making rookie mistakes every single day. Stop to share my screen, do something like that. I'm always making mistakes because we're building the airplane as we're flying it. What we thought we knew at the beginning, we are modifying. And a big part of that modifying right now in my research is these micro teams, that we need to have students in these small groups. The big groups, too easy to check out. Small groups, where it's at. And we really want to be focusing on engagement. So the goal is active learning in these small groups. It's not just, let's go over and have an informal conversation. We want to design projects and activities that students are very purposeful together, and they are creating when they come out of there. I'm going to talk a lot about breakout rooms, and some of you do not have the luxury of breakout rooms. So a lot of teachers have kind of faked it, making different Google Meet, for example, different Google Meet for each of the different groups. That's what a high school teacher told me that they're doing, and that is working for them. So Group A would have this Google Meet link, Group B, and then of course the teacher moves between all of them. Some of you now have breakout rooms, and I'll tell you what, the best way to practice breakout rooms is get some friends, fellow colleagues together and practice. It's just making the rooms take a little bit of organization, but once you'll see, and I hope you agree with me, that I believe the small groups are the secret sauce of transitional learning. This is where the magic happens, and it's very hard to be left out of a pair or 3 or a small group. So what we want to do is we want to also create some leadership opportunities. So each of these micro teams is going to have a captain, which we'll talk about. So we're going to start with SEL, social emotional learning. And when we were in school, that might not have been like your responsibility, but for us, for everyone, it's all of our responsibility now. We need to be able to keep an eye on our students and help them through this difficult time. CASEL is a group that is my go-to for anything tied to social emotional learning. They've been studying SEL for 26 years. And if I have any questions or I need information, this is where I always go. And there are benefits of SEL. Everybody, we all have to focus on social emotional learning, where their attitudes, their relationships, everything. We're all so isolated that we just have to kind of put more eggs in this basket now to try to build those relationships so we can have a great school and classroom culture, even if we're not all together. We have a lot of anxiety, behavior problems, and if we can help any of our students, that is key. We want long-term improvements in student skills and attitudes. That's why we're kind of investing time in this now. And I think it's really important to use the research of what we know and to go ahead and change our instructional policies. So what we kind of started the school year was more of that passive direct instruction. Now I'm saying move more to small groups and really focus on their social emotional learning. This is CASEL's framework, and it's free to download, and I've given you the resource. Oh, we have a shared document that has all the resources in it, every link, everything. It also has a copy of the PowerPoint presentations. So you don't have to, sorry, I should have told you at the beginning, you don't have to take copious notes. You'll have access to all of that through right off the course page. It's a shared Google Doc with everything here. So this framework, if you need to go a little deeper into SEL, this framework, you can download it and kind of dig into it. I've spent a lot of time working with this framework and then studying what people are doing in their transitional learning and then kind of coming back and forth through the framework. We all need safe connections. All of us need connections now. And no digital anything is ever going to replace humans. And we need to collaborate with each other as we go through this pandemic and after this pandemic. We need to show that we care for our students. We can't just be a face on a screen and a grade. And so that is such an challenge for those of you at middle school, high school that see so many kids. How are you going to manage this? But we can't teach kids we don't know. So we really have to, I know it's so hard to say, we have to invest some time in this SEL. Okay, you want to create a safe place for students. And one of my big things is that you need to check in with students and they need to know that you are a safe person that they can go to if they need help. Many students are struggling, and do they have trusted adults that they can go to? When we think about it from a neuroscience standpoint, it's the brain can actually change from this trauma, and we'll be studying this for years and years to come, but really just that quick little lifeline that you might be for your students, just to know somebody's there for them, and we need to reach them to teach them. Okay, what did SEL look like back? You might not even have talked about SEL, but we had visual clues. We could read body language. We could see them jump off the bus in joy. We had support specialists just down the hall. So if you were just concerned, just even informally concerned, you had somebody you could just, have lunch with or something like that. We had other adults we could talk about too. Hey, did you see so-and-so was off today? Now that communication we don't have as easily in this environment. And we had multiple people connecting with that child to create kind of the whole picture of the student. And the other thing is many districts have adopted SEL curriculums. They're good. Some of them are great, but we have to shift our thinking away from like a once a week lesson to everyday What are we going to do? And so students that are at home might not be as candid with their feelings or emotions if they know a parent is sitting next to them or down the hall. And so we might miss some of that candid state things. Primary teachers, if all it is for your SEL check-in is the smiley face, hold up a card, how are you doing today? Whatever, we just need to be checking in. And the remote SEL realities is everyone's feeling isolated. It's easy to fade into the background. Some districts can't mandate that you turn on your video, and some districts don't even have a video platform to work with. So we definitely do not want to shame people into videos, but what I'm finding with my research is when, and it may be in the whole group, everybody's kind of passive and not participating, but these micro teams, the secret sauce of remote learning, all of a sudden we get everybody actively learning. All right. And so maintaining these connections, the daily check-ins. Now, if you're middle school, high school, I don't want you to do this check-in every single class period. Work with your colleagues to who's going to do the check-in maybe once a day, like who's going to own that piece of that. And it just so you know, it is hard to connect with students online. It's easy. It's so much easier for them to fade. So we have to work harder, and we have to really watch out for new stresses. And the whole purpose of this is we're looking for patterns. Okay, so I've been teaching thousands of teachers since spring, and one of my students, I really wanted to share this because it is really important for you. This is a middle school teacher, and she shared with me that the daily check-in form was critical specifically for one of her students. Well, the form that I'm about to show you, this student completed it 3 times in an hour. She needed the help of her teacher. And if we can touch base and have that connection with that student, maybe we can help all our students. All right, so create a very simple form. I'm talking simple, quick. It's just part of your morning routine. This is what we do every single day. I want it to be very non-threatening to fill out, and but know that there's a private way to communicate, and that's really the key. I use a very simple Google form. You can use any kind of form, but know that it is just between the student and the teacher, and that the classmates are not going to see this data. That's really important. You can't get them to open up if they think it's going to be blasted on the screen. And again, we're creating a safe channel. This is what mine looks like. Modify away to what yours is. The question I always ask is, what is your name and what is the date? Yes, there's a timestamp that comes in. I don't want to deal with that. Just tell me what the date is and how are you doing today? Very simple. I'm fabulous, all the way down to I need a check-in. Okay, that's it. Quick. And I made that just a quick pull-down menu. I'm fabulous. Or I'm feeling blah. And then tell me more about your feelings. That's it. Open-ended. If they fill it in, they can. If they don't want to, that's okay too. And super simple. I've also given you this form on our shared Google Doc. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you could take my doc and you could modify it. And so you have the access. I'm talking quick. I'm like a 1-2 minute thing. But this is where the magic comes in, is in the conditional formatting. So every Google form is, you have the beautiful kind of front of the Google form. That's what the students fill in. But behind it, all the information goes to a Google sheet, a spreadsheet. And that's where the conditional formatting is. In the conditional formatting, I thought it was some big mystery out there. It's not. It is. It will take you minutes to do this one time for the year, and then you can go from there. And so what it does is, if you're feeling fabulous today, then you're going to come in bright, sunny yellow. You pick your colors. I just thought bright, sunny yellow. If I visually see that, I'm not worried about that student today. If I need a check-in, it's going to come in bright red. And so in a very quick, short glance at my students, I can see how everyone is doing. And for those key students that I need to check in, I can focus my energy on those students. And again, just that one question of why do you feel that way? Or tell me more about your feelings. Really gave me a great picture into one of my classes. I was teaching 200 people at one time. And I wouldn't recommend it. But the conditional formatting was key for me. This is what conditional formatting looks like. I picked the colors. Right here, this is from obviously a class on Thursday, and this was in the summer. And I added another question because this was my huge class, and I couldn't tell if I was going too fast or slow. So I just asked a question, just a quick check, box. Am I going too fast? Do you want me to go slower? And honestly, it really helped me as the instructor pace my work. Use the data collected. Don't ever ask for data from students if you're not going to use it. So go ahead and make sure you use it. And make sure if you are concerned about a student that you go seek help. And we're looking for patterns. Does this student have trouble on Mondays or Wednesdays or something like that? And that conditional formatting is for you, really, for the visual clue. If you're middle school, high school, some elementary, if you share students, you might want to share that check-in form. And then you might even add another column on the spreadsheet to say who connected with this student, okay? And I just keep mine open. When I'm teaching my week-long classes, I just keep my tab open. I quick check. All right, scan, got all Thursday covered. I can go ahead and move on. You might want to check in with families too. And again, I'd make a very similar form. Just how are things going? How could I be better? Whatever the case may be. And collect that data. Looking again for patterns. They might need some help. They might be food scarcities. There might be things and they don't know who to turn to. Very often teachers are very trusted within a family. And so really be thinking of being that lifeline for that family. This seems very strange that I would have to even put this as a slide, but greet students by name. I substitute parented one day for my neighbor in first grade. He is a 6-year-old non-reader in first grade. He had 7 Zoom links to navigate in one day independently. Well, let's just say it wasn't independent. I had to help him so he had 7 different Zoom links. So this special, this, I was so confused by the time it ended. It was crazy. But not one of those 7 teachers used any student name that I heard. I wasn't really tuned into that, but I thought this child sat here for almost 3 solid hours on the screen and nobody said good morning. And so we really want to really be thinking about using student names. I'm going to talk later more about office hours. Having a time for informal is very important also. Yay! Okay, here we are. We're at the end of the first segment. This one's a little longer. The next one's a little shorter, so they usually kind of average out. What I want you to do is I want you to go to the discussion board, and what I'd like you to do is focus on why do you feel it's so important to support SEL, and what are your plans for creating a check-in. So please answer that question and then try to respond to 2 other people. And I will see you back here in a few minutes. Okay, hey, welcome back. I hope you were able to engage with some other people that are taking this class. And now in our section B, that's how it's A, B, and C. Now in section B, we're going to be really looking at how do we move from compliance to empowerment. So remember, our overarching goal is to get students to own their learning. And I love Simon Sinek. He's just an inspiration, and we all need inspiration right now. But when I want you to think about this is I chose very specifically to call them micro teams, not micro groups, because a team is a group of people that trust each other. And so we have to build and develop that trust. Many of the students that we're working with right now maybe have never even met face to face. So Simon is an inspiration. I love his book, Start With Why. And it's what is your why? Why are we doing this? And it's a good one. It kind of grounds me. If I get a little, I got too much going on, I just can pick up and just kind of page through this one. This is a really good one. He is a fantastic speaker, super positive, super upbeat, and we need that right now. So these creating micro teams, and I want that trust. We need to balance our schedule. We have, many of us are in a situation where we have some of our students at home, some in the classroom, some at daycare centers, some and it changes every day depending on the positivity. And so we've got to create these systems that no matter where you are learning, you are part of that team and you know what you're supposed to do. So you can tune in to whatever. And I know that if you put micro teams into your practice, you're going to have students that are going to be empowered, and they'll come up with so many more creative ideas than we will of how they will communicate. Probably many of them at the older grades will be using their phones, texting each other, or whatever systems they come up with. It's good. But I want a team captain in each group because I want you to have a go-to person, a contact person for that team. And again, like my simple SEL check-in form, I would have a captain form. And I would just, super simple is, how did it go today in your, especially when you first start off. You might not need this long term, but when you first start off with groups, I would definitely encourage you to have them kind of report back to you. One of the things that exhausted everybody at the beginning of remote learning is the amount of email that kept piling in with questions and questions. What we want to do is we want to eliminate that, and we want these teams to become that go-to home base. Check with your team before you send another email. Okay, and we're going to talk about the refined 3 before me, and we'll get there. All right, so how are you going to manage all of this? Yikes! You think I can't manage it right now with direct instruction? I honestly believe this is going to be easier to manage, and so be thinking about that. I would make, for every group, I would make one Google Doc for the group, and it'd be very super simple, 4 columns. What's your group number? Who's there? And who's present and who's absent. Key, especially with this constant change of present or not present. So present or absent, that just means, were they at the group today? What is the date? Again, looking for patterns and comments or questions from your group. So this is just getting a pulse of your group. Now, how are you going to manage all this? So you have one Google Doc for each team. Now you are going to make sure in the sharing settings that everybody can edit the document. It sounds simple, but really important. Once you make that one document, the one with the 4 columns, you are going to make a copy for each group. So you're going to make that one time, make a copy for each group, but you're going to hyperlink them off one main document. I call this your teacher directory of your micro teams. So your one main document gives you, now you are just one hyperlink away from seeing the work that they are doing in that Google document. Okay, this is a refined 3 before me strategy. And this is, I kind of built it off a little bit of Caitlin Tucker. She is my go-to. Awesome. Oh, now Dr. Caitlin Tucker, she's my go-to for blended learning. And you'll visit her throughout our segments. But she has a modified one of 3 before me. This is a strategy I use, especially when I teach big classes. You have to go to 3 people before you go to me. But now with our technology, how about if you first go to Google, see if you can find the answer, then try YouTube. 3rd before me, the 3rd is your group. And so don't send an email. We're going to have to work and train our students. But 3 before me, don't come to me. Don't come to me unless you can tell me about those steps that you did before you got to me. And so that simple strategy, please, I hope it reduces your email by 25%. Send me an email and let me know. Just kidding. All right. You have to set expectations for the micro teams. Especially during this learning, there have been a lot of individualized work. And so now we have to let our groups know what's expected of them, and how do they communicate. It's an expectation that in that, the one-page micro team, that every single student participates. You can check, you can see in a Google Doc, you can see who's participating. So you want, in expectations, everybody has some kind of interaction. Each team's monitored by the team captain. I would keep the captains together at the beginning, but then mix it up. We're trying to get some student leadership in there. So the captain, so you get 2 check-in pieces with these micro teams. You've got that captain form every day, and you've got that hyperlink document. And also, you as the teacher can drop in at any moment and see how the groups are working together. Remember, because you can hop around to breakout rooms. So now we really have 3 ways. I didn't think of it that way. You have 3 ways that you can now communicate with those groups. And we want to put the responsibility on the students to be the ones doing the recording, completing the forms. I don't want you chasing around and saying, "Where's your form?" It's an expectation. Okay, those captains are your critical piece. They are your pulse on everything that's going on. You're going to hear more from them, like, really, how are things really going? And so they're your eyes and your ears, and they're also monitoring social emotional learning. I mean, I'd imagine, if somebody's really struggling, that your captain's going to give you some ideas. And I want you to really be thinking about the information they're giving you, and refine your instructional practice. Oh, so actually schedule a meeting with them. Okay, all captains, I need you to have lunch with me on Wednesday, or whatever the case may be. You don't have to do it every week, but just kind of until the groups get rocking, just make sure that you host those meetings. Okay, this is going to be tough, and some of you at this point are like, "Ugh, I don't like Meg already." That's okay. I'm here to change instructional practice, and worksheets are not engaging, everybody. They're not engaging individually, and they're not engaging in a group. We don't want to put students in these micro teams and set everything up and say, "Great, everybody work together on this packet." No, we need to change. We want to create quality projects. And so, as scary as it is, put that packet aside and let's think how we can attack this. I talked to a superintendent last week, and we were talking about risk taking. Now's the time to take risks. Now the time is to kind of throw away those packets and say, "All right, we're studying X topic. How can we do it?" Ask your students, ask your groups, have every group create something new. What you should be seeing when you're going between these groups and you're checking them out, watch for equal airtime. I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. Is somebody taking over the group? That's always a problem. Are they listening to each other? You might have to, when you look at all these things, these might become mini lessons that you might have to actually teach these mini lessons. Are they asking a lot of questions? Are they following roles? You might have to give them roles. And some groups are going to need them, some are going to be fine. But it just really depends on how old your students are, how much experience they've had working in groups. And even if they've had tons of experience in school in groups, now we're kind of scattered. So it might be time to kind of regroup. And we want quality projects that each micro team has flexibility to be creative, to show what they know. So if you're doing a science or a social studies lesson, don't prescribe that everybody has to make a poster, because that's another trip to the grocery store. Do it creative, do with what you have. They'll figure out such amazing things on how to put it all together in this kind of remote, crazy piece where I'll do this part, you do this part, and we can put it all together, say in WeVideo, or one person on the team is going to put it in iMovie, or whatever the case may be. We want to create a portfolio of your work. I would love to drop into your classroom and you can say, students, let's show what we've been doing in our micro teams, because we want kind of that portfolio to show your work that you as the instructor has kind of mixed it up this year. You want to demonstrate to a broad audience what is going on in your classroom. And that is so critical. Show, if let's say your students make a movie, blast it everywhere. And this is one of my themes that I talk a lot about, is showing what's really happening in your classroom. And we're going to do a lot of speaking and listening. We had a lot of quiet in the spring. Now we've got to create these micro teams so we get kids talking and practicing those speaking and listening skills. And the 4 C's. I talk a ton about the 4 C's. My 4 C's are communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. And so that's what we want. That's what future jobs, that's what they're looking for. Okay, it's going to take practice. You're going to have days that, yeah, and days not so much. But share those projects, celebrate. Let one group show another group and let them teach. Hey, how did you do that? I don't know. And how fun. And publish, share. Themes. Oh, we're already at discussion B. That's awesome. Okay, you're going over the discussion board and your focus, everybody. Every time I send you to a discussion board or you send kids to a breakout room, you have to have a focus. Why is it important to move from compliance to empowerment? And then when are students, as they're working in teams, in groups? And what is your plan specifically? Step 1, what are you going to do for micro teams? So go over to the discussion board and I'll see you back here in a few minutes. All right, welcome back. I hope you had an engaging conversation. We are now in the last segment of session 1, and we're focusing on empowering students as they are actively owning their learning. This is key. Remember, that's where we're going, owning their learning, as they are getting new skills. So we need the students to have independent skills and interdependent skills. So again, we have to teach this. When you're empowering students, we want them to own their learning, and that really happens when they can pick things that interest them. So instead of us always over-prescribing everything, let them pick some things and share what they are interested in. We're really making a huge shift from student-centered. I used to say student-centered classrooms, but now I'm saying student-centered learning to empowered learning. And school, we want, interesting that school, we don't want school to be something that is done to them. We want something that they can enjoy. And we want to be solving problems together. As we are living through this time, we've got a lot of problems to solve. All right, so a kind of a historical education perspective, we had the factory model. Sit in your rows. We can now shake things up like never before. And this is really exciting. This is the time to take risks. So I hope I'm inspiring you to try something new. We want thinkers. We need problem solvers for the future. And we want them to take responsibility for their own learning. Think about your own learning. If you want to learn something or something breaks in your house, where's the first place you go? Well, usually my go-to place is YouTube. I take a look. How complicated is it to fix the dryer? I chose to call somebody. But we want them to be always seeking knowledge. Our old ways don't all work. And wow, the teachers that are struggling so much during this remote learning are many teachers that are struggling to let things go. And so we need to make a shift, and we can't move backwards. And that's really what happened in a lot of school districts. And it really, in many cases, wasn't your fault. The students didn't have the tools. Computers were back ordered. We didn't have bandwidth to do any video, anything. There have been a lot of challenges for a lot of you, but we can't move backwards. Got to move forwards, and we have to continue to grow and learn. So whether remote, face-to-face, whatever your combination is, we have to teach students how to learn. And that's that whole piece of compliance, like sit still, I'm going to tell you everything I know, to empowered. That's like a MEG continuum, that we want them to be over here empowered and learning how to learn. How to ask new questions, how to go out and gather research, what is safe, what is What are they have to chase down the answers. I love this. Chase down the answers to their questions, not just a series of questions that we're constantly providing. What are they interested in? And form new questions and solutions. They can access information 24/7. The information is out there. We no longer contain the information, and we are not the vessel of all information. They can watch YouTube videos for hours, and you know they do. So we have to really kind of embrace that and help them understand how to navigate that information so it makes sense, and then they can create something to show what they know. Oh, big thing in here is student agency in choice and voice. If we are in a very compliant, sit still, I'm going to tell you everything I know. In the shift, we really want to be thinking about moving from the compliance piece to engagement, kind of in the middle, and then over to student agency. So we talk a lot throughout the series about voice and choice. Okay, this is tough and it's going to take work. I feel like I'm going back 100 years to my cooperative learning training, is that students need to be accountable for their own actions as well as the actions of the group. So when you are structuring things, back to when I showed you the roles, you might have to kind of scaffold this for your students. Have different check-ins during the project. You might have hard check-ins, you might have final due dates, things like that. You are going to be dropping in and kind of checking on team captains, and then you've got those 3 checks on each of the micro teams. So there's a lot built in here. All right. When we started remote learning, a lot of people were using what I call drip assignments. Here's Monday, here's Tuesday. And those people are having great success. Have kind of shifted. They are now providing work for students for a week or longer, with different check-ins, with different due dates, things like that. But give them the week at a glance, everything. Then they can budget their time. Let's say they have to work on a group project and they have this individual work. This is important because this is a life skill that every one of us needs, time management. And we're leaning now more toward asynchronous, self-paced learning. Wow, I'm going to be talking a lot about that throughout this series, so I'm not going to go deep here. But where students or small groups can work at their own pace because they can access the lessons because they were recorded asynchronously. And use more of your synchronous time. Let's say your district says you have to have synchronous time for X amount of time. That doesn't have to mean you talk for 2 hours. That could be meaning small groups. So, wow. Okay, we're already at the discussion question for C, your discussion questions. How are you going to empower students to actively own their learning and develop independent and interdependent skills? What are some of your strategies that you're going to try? All right, so that brings us to the end of session 1. So I'd like you to stop at the discussion board and put that in for this question. Then we provided for you, because people asked after our last sequence of classes, they asked for a quiz at the end of each of the sessions. We don't need that, but some of you wanted to show it to your administrator to show that you completed the session. So it's up to you. You could also take notes in that Google Doc that I gave you, and you could share those with your administrator. So lots of things. You have just completed session 1. Yay! And I look forward to seeing you on session 2. And I hope you have just 1 or 2 gems that you can take and use with your students. Thank you very much.